Joining a professional body has never been more important. Join thousands of other professionals just like you who are getting ahead with CIHT membership. Go to the CIHT website and discover exclusive resources and why the leaders and future leaders of the sector are members with CIHT.
Welcome to CIHT Podcasts.
Global View on Roads, set against the backdrop of the need to decarbonise transport and respond to climate change. I'm joined by Nazir Alli, the president of PIARC, the World Road Association. Nazir was elected for a term 2022 to 2024. This is the second part of a two-part interview with Nazir. The first focused on building a national road agency in post-apartheid South Africa, where Nazir was the founding CEO of SANRAL, the South African National Roads Agency Limited. So, welcome to Transport Talks from CIHT. I'm your host, Justin Ward, and on to the conversation now. And now, as president of the World Road Association, you mentioned that international exchange and the kind of benefits of that. But could you just say a little bit about what PIARC is actually?
Yeah.
And then so people haven't heard about it, what it is, and then we'll hear a bit about the Congress that's happening, the World Road Congress later this year.
The PIARC is a member or government member organization. Yeah. So we probably got about 125 member countries right now, but we must say that not all of our members, unfortunately, are not active. There's the last count that I had, which was a little while ago, we had 80 active members. So I think 80 active members, which is good. And how, first of all, just for the benefit of the listeners, is that the manner in which PIARC is set up is that we have the council, which is the final decision maker with all matters, and in terms of governance, the governance structure of PIARC. So we have the council. The council consists of the first delegates from the member countries. They appointed by their respective countries to say these are the first delegates. Underneath that, we have the president with the executive committee. And the executive committee and the president and the three vice presidents that we have on the every cycle, and usually it's a 4-year cycle, except for this current cycle, which is 3 years because of the interruptions caused by what I term the uninvited guest COVID. So, but from 2024, 2025 onwards, and we will be back to the 4-year cycle. And they get elected by the members. And I was thankful to the members that I was chosen as the president last year in 2022. And of course, the executive committee as well. The executive committee, again, is elected by the members themselves. And then underneath that, we have what I call the engine room. Yeah, the real engine of PIARC is the technical committees that we have and the task forces that we set up. And on this new cycle, the current cycle, there's 21 technical committees. In the new cycle, we'll probably have the same amount, but we probably think they'll end up with 19 technical committees because we've merged some of the committees together because we see there's duplication of work. And on that, when we're talking about active members, each member country is asked to propose and allocate 2 members or 2 staff from wherever they want onto the technical committees. And that's where the real work gets done, of all the work that you see coming out of PIARC. And that's what I term the engine room of PIARC. And the biggest value, even I started off life in PIARC in 1995, when we became a democracy in South Africa, so we joined PIARC as well. And I found the greatest values in PIARC. And I'm still friends, with people who I joined with in the technical committees. We didn't call them TCs at that time. We just called them committees, and you had the committee number C1, C2, C5, or whatever it was. That's the way it is. But as institutions evolve, you have different things. And the greatest value was not only in the exchange of knowledge between the different diverse group of people that you have, but the lessons you learn. There are genuine lessons to be learned. So if you this thing had a issue with anything over there, you had a group of people that you could turn to and ask them, not necessarily related to the work of the committee, not necessarily later. I mean, when we were doing PPPs, for instance, right, I could pick up the phone and speak to a various host of people, group of people over there to say, tell me what's your experience on PPPs. Or if we had a contractor, which wasn't a South African contractor or consulting engineer or any other service provider coming to provide services for us, both in the department and then afterwards in SANRAL, I could either drop somebody an email or pick up the phone and say, what's the background to this? Give me some background to this. So that was a big value. The lessons that you learned from each other. And of course, the access you suddenly had to international knowledge, which was coming out of it, both for you as in your working life, but also in your learning life, in your advancing your career. So that's a big value for PIARC. For instance, the whole world today is talking about the issues around climate change and that. Yeah. Now, to me, climate change is the overarching theme, as far as I'm concerned, because within that, you can't talk about resilience and decarbonization and divorcing those two elements from climate change. Because climate change is what's affecting our thinking these days as to how do we build resilient infrastructure. How do we build resiliency into the design of our infrastructure? How do we manage our infrastructure these days, taking into account, the resiliency factors as well? The same thing happens when we talk about decarbonization, where we want to reduce our carbon footprint. And the carbon footprint for me is not just about reducing the travel on our roads. Okay, and I'll come back to why I'm saying that. But it also involves, in terms of a whole value chain, from the way that whether we produce cement or whether we use bitumen, asphalt on our roads, whichever it is that we do, how do we encourage our service providers, our suppliers in that chain, in that value chain that we're talking about? And what role do we as individuals also play in that value chain in reducing the impact of climate change on us, whether it is building resilient infrastructure or whether it's just reducing the carbon footprint. And we got to look at the whole value chain. And that's where, again, PIARC comes in. PIARC looks at the whole value chain with the different committees that they have set up over there. And then we have the overarching committee within our strategic team coordinators, the 4 strategic team coordinators that we have. That is where it is. Then it is left up to the individual member countries to either adopt it or adapt it. And I believe a lot of the adaptation takes place without it necessarily being pronounced on or made public. But you'll see that in conversation that you have with your colleagues, they say, oh yeah, we've changed X, Y, and Z to suit our purposes of that. That, to my mind, is a great value. Now, we've all faced these challenges as far as this climate change is concerned. We've all been affected with it some way or other. Some parts of our member countries have droughts. They don't experience the floods that we have over there. And the droughts itself cause huge other problems in terms of food security, just like floods do. Yeah. Apart from then some of our member countries that we have, they're earthquake prone. Yeah. How do we stabilize those areas over there, and how do we manage the unfortunate disasters that come out of that, or the ravaging fires that we're starting to experience these days in different parts of our member countries as well? How do we manage that? Again, I talk about the value chain in terms of what you're doing. And the lessons that you've learned from one country or the experiences they have had in managing that particular disaster or that particular event, let me put it that way. Yeah, that knowledge is transferred to a whole host of other people within the PIARC family. And that is where the adaptation takes place, to say that, country X, a similar event happened over there in country X. This is what worked over there. Will it work in our situation? So there's less experimentation to be done in terms of dealing with the restoration after any kind of unfortunate event which has taken place. That, to me, is the great value of PIARC. And also we need to recognize, right, where the developed countries may sit around and talk about, that we got to reduce that we're not going to build new roads. We reduce the number of or the funding in new roads, etc. But we got to look at the LMIC countries, for instance, right, where they don't have the sufficient roads to support the basic economy of their countries. On our continent, the other day that I was talking to some people over there, and we can show that according to the World Bank, and although this was a 2016 number, that we still needed between 60,000 and 100,000 kilometers of roads in Africa. Yeah. 2016, you know what I mean? We're talking about 7-8 years down the line. I doubt, even let's assume that we've managed to do another 10,000 kilometers, but still between 50 and 90,000 kilometers of roads. And our biggest challenge that we face, where does the funding come to it? There again, I think the kind of relationships built within PIARC, and that you got access to the information to say you can go and look for funding at X, Y, and Z places, other than the traditional development finance institutions, the multilateral agencies that we talk about, whether it's the African Development Bank or the EIB. By the way, I must tell you that SANRAL had borrowed money from the EIB. We were the only ones in South Africa, the European Investment Bank, who managed to convince the EIB to lend us in rands, and we paid them back in rands. We didn't understand what a euro or a pound means. So we were very, very chuffed that we could borrow money from them. So that's a big value of PIARC. And then, of course, because what PIARC does, right, it takes into account, it recognizes the lack of facilities in your own country before we even can start talking about, how to reduce just the carbon footprint over there. But while we're building this infrastructure, it's important for us in the LMIC countries also to be mindful in that value chain that I spoke about earlier as to how do we reduce our carbon footprint while we're building this infrastructure, etc., and all of that. That is the major challenges that we face currently. Yeah. So PIARC, I think, is a huge vehicle. Then, of course, we have the two congresses. I call them the Winter Congress and the Summer Congress. The one is, of course, to do with the Congress that we have every 4 years as well, as to deal with matters related to working in cold climates and that. Yeah. In cold climates, and that's what it deals with. Like the last one we had in Calgary, a very, very successful one in Calgary that we had, which was all done virtually because of COVID. And again, I must say thank you and pay compliments to all the people who were involved in organizing the Calgary Congress. I'm sure it wasn't an easy task for them to switch from an in-person one suddenly to make it a virtual one. So well done to all the people of Calgary and who were involved in that. And of course, the presenters who was suddenly you're not meeting them face to face, you're doing it on screen. It's not the same as when there isn't the same interaction when you're doing things on screen than on face. So well done to Calgary. The next one that we've got is the World Road Congress, which is taking place in a few months' time, in 5 months' time. I just quickly count. In 5 months' time, from 2 to 6 October in Prague. We were very honored and privileged in South Africa to have hosted in 2003 in Durban. So we hosted it then, and now, of course, it's a turn of Prague. And I take this opportunity to all the listeners of this podcast to please visit the website. The PIARC website will tell you about the Congress as well and where you can register for the Congress as well. This is a culmination of the hard work which has been done by the technical committees. This is the time of the Congresses are the culmination where we present everything that we've done during the cycle that has just passed and which is coming to an end, and a new cycle starting over there. And the technical committees are handing over the baton to say for new people to come in. And hopefully there will be further innovation and new ideas coming out of there as well. So I take this opportunity to invite people please come to Prague with us from between 2 and 6 October. All the information related to this can be found on the PIARC website, which is a simple one. It's www.piarc.org. And then you'll be taken to the link for the Congress as well. And I look forward to meeting as many people as possible in person at the Congress in Prague. But in between, it's not just that everything gets published at the end of the cycle, but in between we have a number of seminars in different countries. And again, my thanks to all the countries who had hosted seminars and workshops. I still haven't fathomed out the difference between the workshop and the seminar, but that's the labels we use. So I must extend my thanks to all the host countries who have hosted us, both as the seminars, the webinars that we have, and of course the workshops that we have. So my sincere thanks and gratitude to all of them. And of course to those who host us, who host our meetings, whether it's the ExCom meetings, technical committee meetings, whichever meetings it is that they host. And it's important to note as well, and I must express my sincere gratitude to all the volunteers of PIARC. These are all volunteers, who do all the engine room. They're all volunteers. So my sincere thanks, and I'm hoping that we will be able to continue for another 100 years with PIARC in the same vein as we've done, taking into account how circumstances are changing around the world, and that PIARC becomes the forerunner, the body in which I'd like to say that we become the advocates in terms of how we deal with the challenges that we face, whether they're from nature or some of the man-made challenges as well, in as far as climate change and that is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Huge challenges, but huge opportunities for sharing knowledge. So the Congress is really a fulcrum of a lot of that. So yeah, I'd strongly encourage people to get engaged with that where possible. Right, I'm conscious of your time.
I've got the time. I'm conscious of your time.
Yeah,
so
no, it's
please
just
go ahead.
there was one question that I had on, given that PIARC has developed a strategy on gender inclusion and diversity that was approved at the council meeting.
Yes.
I was wondering how your lessons of being chief executive of SANRAL and the environment post-apartheid, how you brought people together, particularly the kind of gender inclusion element from that, and the lessons that you would have maybe for PIARC in terms of progressing with that agenda, because it has now been adopted as a kind of value of PIARC. So how does PIARC go about making a success of that? Because I think there was positive lessons from your experience as CEO of SANRAL within that context.
Look, it is unfortunate that not everybody thinks about how to make use of the other half of humanity, and I'm talking about the females now in particular. They constitute, I think, 51% of us, and there's a pool of knowledge around us that we're not investing in, and not also getting them to invest in our respective companies. At SANRAL, it was very simple. I'll give you one anecdote. One of my former colleagues from the private sector, an excellent environmentalist, right? And I said to my colleagues, a bunch of engineers, that listen, one of the things that we need, the skills we need in SANRAL is an environmentalist. That's the way things are going. We better have the right skills, and we can't just be a bunch of engineers. And Justin, you won't believe the sort of looks I got, the comments I got. One was to do that you're hiring an environmentalist, and second, she's a lady. You're a woman, you're hiring. You understand? Yeah. I said to them, guys, let's get it straight. We can't be talking about diversity only about race in South Africa. Yeah, the gender, the women in our country have been marginalized, and that across the white females as well. We don't have them in engineering and that in those areas. Yeah. As I said, we can't have that. You look at our agency when we first started off, especially the department, women were only in supporting roles. There were no senior people in that. And I said, that will change in SANRAL. We will not have that at all. We will hire on merit, but we will target women as well. And I'm very happy to say that at SANRAL, we had the largest number of women engineers than any other company in South Africa. I'm very happy to say that. And it was no rocket science as to how we did that. There was a willingness to recognize the value that those people that we were recruiting were going to add to SANRAL, the skills that they were bringing into SANRAL. And the one thing I noticed as well, because we not only had women coming and bringing women into SANRAL in terms of diversity, apart from the race issues that we had to deal with at SANRAL as well, but also we had a SMME program for small and medium-sized contractors. And the one thing I noticed, any of the small contractors which was managed and run and owned by women, did far better than those who were men. Seriously, in terms of the quality of the work they produced, how they looked at the issues around themselves, and in fact, how they work when there were certain environmental restrictions also placed, because you couldn't do things willy-nilly on site. Women contractors perform better. And I think there's lessons for us to learn over there. It's all to do with the willingness. The challenge that we face within PIARC is that we can't dictate to any of our members that you will appoint X number of women onto the committees and that. But I must say I've seen that there's a huge change in terms of the number of women who are coming in there. And by having set up this particular group, on diversity and gender diversity that we're doing in that, I think there's one of the better things we've done in the PIARC in the recent years, by starting to recognize, the women in the contribution, the very valuable contribution they make, not only to our profession as such, but to our organization over there. And one of the things that we used to do in SANRAL as well, we used to make sure that, we used to find that the salaries, and there's an article I can send to you, Justin, if I haven't sent it to you. I've circulated to a lot of our women colleagues in PIARC that the disparity in salaries though. So although you may have a senior female in your company over there, she would not earn the same as a male at that particular level over there. And at SANRAL, we used to tell the people who are doing business with us is straight. If we find out that that's what you're doing in your companies, you will not do business with us in SANRAL. It's unwritten, but we used to meet our counterparts, the CEOs, etc., and all of that. Yeah, because we had a strong ethic in SANRAL of accountability. Yeah, that was our ethos. For instance, in SANRAL, we're the only organization when the collusion took place because of the 2010 World Cup construction taking place, the amount of work which is coming in. The various contractors colluded with each other. We're the only ones who sued all of them. And we settled the matter out of court. Yeah. And they've paid, whatever they have to pay, etc., and all of their business. Yeah. And then same attitude we took in terms of bringing females into the SANRAL thing. We didn't turn around and say HR is traditionally female, so that's why only we will do that. My regional manager was a female as well. My executives were females. If you look at it, the company secretary, the CFO, the HR, regional manager, the head of, calling it the head, the person who led the environmental cluster, they were all females. Yeah, at senior level, we had the females at senior level. Yeah, our regional manager was also a female. It was all on the willingness, but of course, and they all could stand their standing ground with anybody, with any challenge they did. And I believe PIARC is now moving in the same direction with this particular committee that we've set up. If you look at the number of women who've now been proposed, right, both at the leadership level within PIARC, the chairpersons of the committees, etc., team coordinators, yeah, you can see the number of women who are now coming to the fore. And I'm hoping that the same will get with the committee members as well. And that's why I believe that we are on the right track. But also the big advantage of this is that what we said early on of sharing knowledge between experiences within PIARC, that too gets carried through. The issues around diversity also gets carried through to your respective member countries.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Nazir. That was a brilliant coverage of both South African and global issues. So,
joining a professional body has never been more important. Join thousands of other professionals just like you who are getting ahead with CIHT membership. Go to the CIHT website and discover exclusive resources and why the leaders and future leaders of the sector are members with CIHT.